This week is School Choice Week, National School Choice Week, and to explain what it's all about, we've asked Brian Jodice to join us this afternoon. And I just want to say, tomorrow we will continue the conversation. We're going to be chatting with a father who is supportive of the concept of school choice, and he'll explain why. But today we'll start off with Brian Jodice, Vice President of Communications for Parents for Educational Freedom, NC. PEFNC.org is their website, by the way. And with that, Brian, it's been a while, so let me just first say Happy New Year to you, and thanks for joining us.
Lockwood, it is great to hear your voice again, my friend, and great to be with you and your listeners. And I appreciate you plugging the website because it is the newly revamped PEFNC.org. So we just released at the end of last week a brand new look to the website. So I definitely encourage folks to go check it out and get signed up and see all we're doing across our state to advance parental school choice in the great state of North Carolina.
All right. Well, let's talk about the whole concept of school choice. What's the purpose of this week? And by the way, is this a statewide event or a national event?
Yeah, and, our organization works on behalf of parents and families across our state, to engage them at the grassroots level, to educate them about what options we have here in North Carolina, and to empower them with a choice in their children's education. And we do that 52 weeks, 12 months a year. But what's also great is our friends at National School Choice Week, who this week, between this Monday and all the way through the end of the week, set aside real time to celebrate all school choice options across the country. And that's happening here in North Carolina, but it's also happening nationally. And we're talking about traditional public school, public charter, virtual learning, private school, homeschool. All of those options are celebrated this week. There are over 40,000 celebrations happening across the country, and over 1,300 of those celebrations happening right here in North Carolina. And so we're happy to be part of that. We've been celebrating National School Choice Week for a long time with them, and we're thrilled to talk about it here in North Carolina over the next few days as well.
Okay, but why are you thrilled about school choice? I mean, education is education, Brian. Again, Brian Jodice of Parents for Educational Freedom, NC, with us this afternoon. Why do we worry about such a minor issue as choice?
Well, I think education is the bedrock of our communities. Mm-hmm. It is the most pivotal point of where we can get to young children and start their lives off. And without a good education, kids can be in the hole early, and that's the last thing we want to see. And what we've seen here in our state is that we've created a climate where we're empowering parents. And all we're saying is let parents know what options are available to them. Just because you have these 5 numbers that are associated with where you live, that zip code, it doesn't have to necessarily determine your lot in life, especially for families who are stuck in a zip code that just, quite frankly, the traditional public school isn't what they need. And it doesn't always have to be the same for everyone. There are many different reasons why. And what we've longly advocated for, and what we will continue to do at Parents for Educational Freedom, is say, let's empower families with some choices and let them know what's around them, let them know what's in their area or where they might want to drive to go find, and let's see what else is out there. Put all those options on the table, give them the education they need to know what's out there, and let families decide what fit is best for their child, because every child learns differently. Some children need different things inside their own household. And so let's empower parents to have a voice in that. And we think when that's the case, we can see positive educational outcomes for our kids.
Of course, I'm being a little sarcastic when I say this. I mean, why do we trust parents to make that decision?
Absolutely.
Isn't government better?
Those closest to the children would know what would be best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wouldn't government be better at deciding which okay, I'm being a little sarcastic.
And listen, Lockwood, and you get it. Many of your listeners understand that as well. And to be quite frank, we've got 1.4 million students in our state that are educated in traditional public school, and for many of those families, it's a great option. I mean, my daughter is in public school. She's in the first grade, loving life. She's having a great year. We love her school. We're engaged. We're in that classroom. We're talking to her teacher. It's a great option for us. But you know what? There's thousands of families across our state who are stuck in something that's just not working for them. And what we're saying is, yeah, man, let's bring the barriers down, and let's provide them a climate that empowers them, and maybe for the first time ever actually listens to what they want versus telling them what they should get. Because parents know if they're involved in their children's lives, they'll know what's up.
But it's the other interesting aspect of this. And we're going to get into more details here in a moment with Brian about PEFNC. That's Parents for Educational Freedom, North Carolina. Brian, I read with interest a couple of weeks back, Wake County, second largest school district in North Carolina, actually saw a practical flattening of school census. I think the total net increase for the Wake County School District, and please, if you know the number, correct me on this one, was something like 64 or 84 students.
Yeah, it's under 100. Yep. It's
okay.
Under 100.
All right. Thank you. So I do recall relatively correctly. You know, the interesting aspect of this, and they pointed to the fact that one of the reasons why the traditional schools have seen a flattening, if you will, of school-age children is school choice. Charter schools, private schools, homeschooling. And I want to bring up the topic of homeschooling. But are we seeing now a trend in North Carolina that, in fact, is going to have a potential financial impact? Because if you don't have growing student population in the traditional brick and mortar schoolhouse, well, then we may not need to be building multiple sites of brick and mortar traditional schoolhouses. So my question is this a temporary trend, or do you see this as, since you're representing PEFNC, the fact that there are these growing opportunities of choices that we may see a major, one of a better description, course change in education?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those things. I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at what's happened in our state over the last 3 years specifically, you've seen an adjustment in how students are being enrolled in what kinds of schools. You've seen nearly 22,000 less students enrolled in traditional public school, and then we've seen an uptick across public charter, private, and homeschool options. And all of those have trended up while one has trended down. And so your first question was, do you think this will have a financial impact? And I think this is having a competition impact. And what's happened is families are just having more choices. I mean, if you think about it, families and parents every single day get to make all these choices. I'm talking to you right now on my smartphone, and it has 60 apps on it. The average American has somewhere between 40 and 50 apps on their smartphone. So we're making choices every single day, at a fingertip away. Yet when it comes to education, we're basically told, hey, you've got to sort of follow along here. And again, for thousands of families, really a million families, it's working well for them, but not for everyone. And so I think we're just seeing a mindset shift, in how we view, how we go and get our education for our children. I think there are tons of families who want to look at elementary school here, middle school here, high school here, and move around from what those different options are. Sometimes choosing to homeschool for a certain portion and then go back in either to the traditional public school, public charter, private school, whatever. So I think we're seeing a bit of a shift there. And I think, to your point, it's going to have to cause everyone to take a look at what's available. And maybe through this, I want to see public schools succeed. Nobody wants to see public schools fail. They just want to see their children succeed first. And so by having these options, maybe it creates a bit more competition, everyone to step their game up, and to maybe look for alternative ways to go out and seek that education for their children.
We are seeing the traditional school system embracing change embracing change and choice here for a change. By the way, just for those just joining us, we have on the line with us Brian Jodice, who apparently is not app challenged in light of the fact he has 60 apps on his phone. But we're talking with him about this being School Choice Week. Two observations. One, we're seeing, I want to talk about homeschooling, the impact of that here in a moment, but related to choice, we're now seeing school systems, and I can point to several school districts here in our listening audience, Onslow, Craven, and Carteret County now, have engaged in, if you will, early college opportunities for students, and a program that just initiated in Carteret County, MAST, Marine and Science Technology Program, where ninth graders, freshmen, were given the opportunity to start a 4-year track using the community college as their base. And so the school board, the school system, all of them have embraced this change. This is would this be part of those changes that and choices we're talking about?
This is what I'm talking about, and this is what I like to hear, is when you hear about these innovative different styles. And I think you take a look at what's going on down in Robeson County, so not where you are, but sort of down in southern North Carolina, in Roland, North Carolina. Innovative School District has come in and has partnered with a local community school to essentially give that school a second chance. They've been low performing for a number of years, and they've come in and they've given them some flexibility. They've been able to pick their own curriculum. They've been able to put their students in uniforms because that's what the community asked for. So they're listening to these local communities and adapting what the educational model looks like around them. I mean, I think we've got to focus on kids and what's going to ultimately get them to where they need to go versus systems. I'll give you another example. And it sounds like they've got some flexibility and the ability to kind of go out and do what they see as best to move these children along. So I'm a member of F3, which is a fitness group. It's men that work out at 5:30 in the morning in the super cold this time of year. We've got a phrase, and a special shout out to my F3 brothers in Carter Rico, which are in your area, Morehead City area.
Right.
And it's free to lead. So if you give some freedom and some flexibility, these leaders will emerge and will start to push new ideas that sort of move the group forward. So why don't we think about that a little bit when it comes to education, provide a little bit of freedom. And it sounds like in those programs, they're given some flexibility to innovate and be different and think about what is best for those students. And I love the sound of that.
Brian Jodice with us. Brian, the other aspect, and I want to touch on very briefly, homeschooling, which I'm a big fan of simply because I have grandchildren that have benefited from homeschooling, to be perfectly candid for the audience. And what's impressive is the success that the children have had, in spite of the fact that the parents were not professional educators, but were committed and invested in it. And of course, they used a program, Classical Conversations, which is sort of I think the term is a university type environment where at the end of each week, the students get together and go through certain skills and academic areas that require, quote, a more professional approach. But the success of the homeschooling environment, and I have been told that if you aggregate all the homeschoolers in North Carolina, you'll have the third largest school district in population in the state. Would that be about right?
The most recent numbers I've seen, and there's a bit of a tricky part to how you estimate the total number of homeschool students, but I believe we're over 135,000 homeschool students, could be near 150,000 at this point. And I think to your point, you've got to ask, and I think you've seen 17,000 new homeschool students over the last 3 years, something along those lines. We always just come back to the why. Very important in all this, and we're a very purpose-driven organization, is the why. We want to know why these families are making this choice. And for many homeschool families, what they've said is, we believe we can provide our child the best education here at home. And there are even multiple reasons on top of that why, as to why they might want to have their child there. For many families, what we've heard in alternative school methods is they're looking for something safer. They're worried about bullying, safety. They're also worried about values. So these are the reasons why families are making these choices, and those are the reasons we try to highlight that at PF&C.
One other aspect of the homeschooling operations, and please, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. But I understand certain universities, and I'm talking Ivy League universities, have established a process for recruiting homeschoolers. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I mean, there are definite benefits to a lot of these, and I think you'll see an uptick in universities as it relates to just looking for students outside of the traditional norm. And there are added benefits to the education level. And again, it doesn't mean that every single homeschool situation is the best in the world, but if there's ways for families to put a good, solid bedrock of education and tailor it specific to that child, and send them to that university experience with what they need to be ready, then I hope that that's something that those universities will take a look at and take to heart when they're looking at those students.
Our guest with us this afternoon, Brian Jodice, again, we're talking with him about School Choice Week. This is a national celebration and recognition of school choice. Brian, as we wrap it up with you, and of course, the topic of competition, initially predominantly through charter school development and expansion, the traditional schools saw this as, an uncomfortable competitive environment. But again, I'm wondering, are the traditional school systems now beginning to embrace this, and in the process, are communities better understanding this?
I think it's a long way to go. I think you could ask that question differently to different parts of the state, where maybe those relationships are much better. I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that charter schools are public charter schools. They are public schools, public school students. So my hope would be that they would embrace it. What I'd love to see more of, maybe this is a challenge for folks around the state, I'd love to see more collaboration. Let's get folks at a shared table. Again, if we care most about children's outcomes, let's bring public school teachers, public charter school teachers, private school teachers, and their leaders together to communicate about what they're doing to help their students along. And let's have a real collaborative That, to me, would show that we really care about moving student outcomes along. And if we do that, we bring folks to the table and we can share things. Now we've got a shared voice. Now we can talk about accountability across all of those school models. So my hope is, yes, what we've seen is, in Wake County specifically where I'm located, we've seen some schools be granted charter-like flexibility, right, which shows me that we're starting to embrace that more. But let's see if we can't bring folks together, share ideas, and we can move kids along that way.
Brian Jodice with us this afternoon. Brian, stay with me. I'll chat with you briefly off air, but I do appreciate your time. Look forward to further conversations with you related to Parents for Educational Freedom North Carolina. That's PEFNC.org. You'll also be able to log on and see all of the events that are planned this week, variety of events within our listening audience, not nearby, but down in Wilmington, I know for sure, and a few other locations within driving distance. More to follow here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station. Brian, thanks for being with us.